Alright.
Welcome back to another starting build video, you bastards. Same with Battle Mage. Cleric preset is load of bollocks, because they have the same, I believe, preset for attributes. And we're going to correct that. There are a couple of ways you can build Cleric from early on. You can focus on strength, you can focus on intelligence, or you can focus on constitution. Let's first cover strength based one. No matter what you do, your cleric should be a frontliner. So if you want a strength one, then leave 1 point into constitution, it won't hurt you, and put another point into strength. You should always use heavy armor and shield with cleric. Single-handed weapons cannot do as much damage as two-handed weapons can and dual wield. But the beautiful thing about single-handed and shield is the bouncing shield ability. Bouncing shield ability is a physical armor destroyer. It does insane amount of damage, and especially if it crits, is gonna hurt a lot. So that's the way you can cover that lack of DPS. If you're doing a strength-based cleric, then you really want to do some DPS. Here there are a couple of options. For starting, Necromancer and Hydrosophist are fine. With Necromancy you're gonna get typical stuff like Decaying Touch and Bloodsucker as a preset. Perfectly fine. Mosquito Swarm is also good if you want it. All of these things are resisted by physical armor. Decaying Touch is especially useful here because you can combine Restoration with Decaying Touch to do insane amount of damage. When you put Decaying Touch on an enemy, and when they have decaying status, you use restoration on them. That will do a lot of damage. Same goes with Bloodsucker. If you put decaying touch on your enemy and then use Bloodsucker, and if they are standing in a pool of blood, the damage will be high. If you do not want Necromancy, you can completely forget about it. Perfectly fine. For this setup, I would suggest getting high amount of points into Warfare and high amount of points into Hydrosophist. Couple of points should be also spread to Leadership. Tank is the best leadership attribute wielder. They don't need as many help as the others do to survive. In the beginning of the game, you can create something like this, Warfare Hydrosophist or Hydrosophist Necromancer. You only need 1 point into Necromancy throughout the whole game, just to get the Decaying Touch, and if you want something else. Really, there's no need to focus on Necromancy at all. Single-handed is not needed too. I would focus rather on Warfare than on single-handed. During the first 8 levels or so, I'd put about 4 points into Hydrosophist, 3 points into Warfare, 1 point into Necromancer. Or you can reduce Hydrosophist by 1 point and Warfare 2. That way put those 2 points into Leadership. Trust me, it will pay off. Not for your tank, but for other party members. From the Warfare tree, there are a couple of things that are extremely good. As I said, Bouncing Shield, immediately get that, and Battle Stomp. These are two best skills that you can get at the beginning, simply because Battle Stomp knocks down enemies, and crowd controlling is such a good thing, especially on higher difficulties. It's going to help you a lot. Bouncing Shield, I already said that, and also Bouncing Shield with high enough wits and Savage Sortilege talent can crit. Without them it cannot crit. Something I've learned from comments. Very useful info. For the rest of the points for Strength, Constitution and Wits during the first 8 levels, I'd put most of the points into Strength, the rest of the points into Constitution. I would completely neglect Wits and Savage Sortilege up until higher levels like 12, 13, 14 and so on. Then from gear you'll get more Wits, and you'll also get more Wits from runes. That's when you can start focusing Wits during the leveling up process. But as I said, for the first 8 levels I'd put most of the points into Strength and couple of points into Constitution. If you want to create some kind of the ultimate tank slash healer slash buffer, then put all the points into Constitution. And later on, whatever you want really, you can put points into Wits if you want, just for the bouncing shield effect. If you want that. If not, no need. For this kind of setup, I'd suggest focusing on Hydrosophist and putting a couple of points into Geomancy. So my first setup would be like this. That way you get Fortify, you get Armor of Frost, and you get heals. Something like this. This is a complete restorative build. During the leveling process, put 2 points, or I don't know how many you need for Guardian Angel and Provoke, but I think 2 is enough for those 2 skills. I think 3 on Warfare is maximum needed for this particular build throughout the whole game. This is a complete tank. The only damage that he will be doing is through Bouncing Shield. That's why you can start putting points into Wits later on in the game. And then using Savage Sortilege as a talent, just for the shield, nothing else. This build best works in physical damage setup for your group, because you can also use skills from Warfare like Battle Stomp and Battering Ram that would knock down the enemies. It's hard to focus really one thing with Cleric. There are so many options, so many ways to build that it's really tough to cover all the possibilities. For the first 8 levels, this guy would look like this. 2 points into Warfare, 2 points into Hydrosophist, 2 points into Geomancer, 2 points into Leadership. That's how he would look like. No offensive spells whatsoever, only defensive spells. The only thing offensive is Battle Stomp and Bouncing Shield, and also if you want Battering Ram. And throughout the game you can focus on Hydrosophist to maximum and then Geomancy as high as you can to get more auto fortify and skills like Mend Metal. For the gear, same thing, single-handed weapon, shield, heavy armor. Third option is if you use intelligence-based Cleric. This works best in full magic damage party, but it can also work very well in mixed damage party. If I was going for something like this, then I would use Hydrosophist Geomancer for all the buffs and heals, and I would use Wand instead of strength-based single-handed weapon. Leadership is always a must on this type of setup, because he is tank after all, and leadership is best on the tank, no matter what kind of weapon you're wielding and what you're focusing on. Whenever someone has a shield, he is a potential tank. From the Warfare, in this particular setup, if you're running more of a magic damage party build, you're only going to need Guardian Angel and that's it. Bouncing Shield is always good, so you can add that too to the mix. And for the first 8 levels, I'd have something like this. Now I don't know how much Warfare Guardian Angel requires, I forgot. So get enough points to get Guardian Angel. I believe 2 is enough. If you are running Wand plus Shield setup, I'd use the same amount of points into Geomancy, Hydrosophist, Warfare and Leadership for the first 8 levels. Same as with the Constitution based Cleric, but with some changes. I would put here some offensive spells too. At the beginning you can go for the full restorative setup, but as soon as you find some skill books that will give you offensive spells like Fossil Strike and Hell Strike, go for it. So you can go for something like this. Instead of Armor of Frost and Fortify, go for offensive spells if you want. Plenty of things you can mix in here and everything works. So don't be afraid. As long as you know the basic concept, you can't make that much of a mistake. This is also DPS version of the Cleric, so later on you're going to have to put some points into Wits too. So max out Intelligence, Constitution a couple of points, and Wits the rest of the points. Later on in the game, when you're higher level and you have good enough gear that would increase your Wits and critical chance, I would suggest Savage Sortilege only for the bouncing shield. If you're having an intelligence based cleric, then you'll also get more benefits from Savage Sortilege for your other offensive spells. But that's only later in the game. I don't know why I'm even focusing now, because I'm trying to focus on the first 8 levels. At the beginning of the game, things like all skilled up from level 2 on is really good. You're going to get extra combat ability point that can help a lot. Bigger and better too. If you're using a DPS version, be it strength or intelligence, then use Executioner. Opportunist is only for the strength based character. For constitution based one, it's an optional thing, but I wouldn't go for it since you're not doing that much damage with single-handed weapon anyway. Living armor is good for any type of battle cleric, because you're constantly using heavy armor as it is. That means lower magical armor numbers. Far Out Man could be especially useful, and elemental affinity. So these are the things I will focus on at the beginning. If you don't want to put points into memory, then use Mnemonic 2 in couple of levels. That way you'll save your DPS or your survivability, and you'll have enough memory slots to accommodate all the spells that you want to use. That will be it for the cleric. Thank you all for watching. As you can see from all the options, it's hard to distinguish what would be the best setup. There are plenty of options. Without bouncing shield, I would always say that intelligence based cleric would be the best setup with wand, shield and heavy armor. But with the bouncing shield, I will say that it's evenly balanced for DPS versions of cleric. If you do not want cleric to do any kind of damage and you just want him to heal, tank and buff, then constitution based cleric is your best choice with couple of points into wits later on in the game, so that you can get Savage Sortilege and do bouncing shield with insane crits. I hope I cleared some of the stuff up. I know this is probably more complicated than Battle Mage, so if you have questions, please post in comments. I probably forgot something as well, because it's one of the most complicated builds to do. Either way, thank you all for watching. I hope I helped you out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Special thanks to all of my patrons, and see you guys soon.
Toodaloo, motherfucker!